Welcome to this episode of the Blerd Talk Podcast. Today's topic will be, did our parents raise us right? So I have a question for y'all before we dive deep
You gotta
into
turn
it.
that off, Alex. Turn it off. That background, because I'm gonna keep fading in and fading out.
It's kind of a cool thing. It's like you're in, and then you just kind of dematerialize. It's kind of cool.
So
He's a ghost.
If we took this question and did a survey, and we said we interviewed 10 people, how many people do you think would say they were raised correctly?
Depending on what year are we talking about?
So it's talking about, okay, so it's a generational question then?
Basically.
Generation
Okay, I guess
socioeconomic.
I guess in our generation then.
One.
You think one would say they was raised right out of 10
Yeah.
if he was born in the 80s, early 90s?
I would say, so I'm early 90s, so I was thinking like early 90s, like mid 90s. Yeah, we're kind of a generation that's known for having had less than optimal parenting and being very aware of it.
That's interesting. I would have said like maybe 7. So
Yeah, I think we're the
97.
I would say about probably 8 or 9. Honestly,
Like percent?
Wait,
Are y'all saying like out of?
no, he said 1 to 10.
yeah,
Oh,
out
from
of 10
1 to
people,
10.
out of
Yeah.
out of 10
okay, out of
people,
10. Well, okay, so percentage. Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
like I would say about like 8 or 9, because to be honest, I've seen these kids now. Yeah, nah. I think we got lucky.
Alex, you thinking hard about it. What would you give it?
I think I give it somewhere between a 3 and a 4.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna get into why y'all gave that answer with Alex and Jock in a second. So leading up to this podcast, I was thinking to myself, so I was raised in a single parent home, right? Y'all two, Alex and Kenny's raised in 2. Jock, were you raised in 1 or 2 parent home?
It's complicated, it's 2, but it's really complicated.
Okay, so before I really thought deep into it, I was like, of course I was raised right. My mom did a wonderful job. I'm not in jail. I'm not out here doing anything illegal. I have morals. I have ethics. Yeah, so my mom did a good job. But then, so now the stuff that we were taught or how we were raised, like as far as whoopings and this, that, and the third, that's now considered abuse, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then it made me wonder, was that really abuse or is just disciplinary actions taken that may vary from parent to parent?
I think the biggest thing of it is you always have to look to see that each parent is, in a sense, raising their children 2 generations behind. 3, depending on if you're even from this country. I think we all have mostly unique cases. I'd say Kenny's case is probably the most, actually Kenny and Dante, your case is probably the most normal between the 4 of us here. So my parents obviously came from Nigeria, raising me here. So they're raising me based on traditions in a whole different continent, while they're still assimilating with traditions in America. But what they raise you on for everyone is still lacking behind, because by the time you become an adult, what they've taught you is possibly obsolete. So like I was taught when I was going through like computer class and things like that, how to put in a CD drive in a PC. PCs really don't even have CD drives at this point anymore. And that was in high school, I was still being taught this. So thinking from like you're a kid of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20, the things you were taught, go to school, get a degree, all of that stuff in the present time is practically useless. Like this isn't knowledge to really push you forward anymore. It's all antiquated. But they're teaching you based off of how their parents taught you, which is the prior gen, but you're 2 gens behind already.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an entire difference of looking wise, and especially if you're a foreigner, not only are you 2 to 3 gens behind, you're also behind based on your culture of where you came from, because your culture isn't the predominant culture here in America. So if you came from, for example, Nigeria, like my parents did, things are totally different as far as how people act and behave in comparison to here.
Okay, so Jock, what would you say? You gave it a 1, you said?
I give it a 1, but I also want to double click on what Alex said, because that's partly why my situation is so complicated. I immigrated from Haiti here when I was 15. And while I was in Haiti, we had sort of like this big family house thing going. So it was like two grandparents, two cousins, our family, which is 5 people. Like my immediate family, which is 5 people. And then we often had just like, other family like coming in and out and just staying with us for like weeks at a time. And then you come here, and now it's just like this, like it's 5 of us, and we're in Rhode Island, like no one knows anything. Like my mother could barely speak English. And in both situations, though, like my parents were not around that much. So it was like whoever was actually left in the house, if there was someone in the house. Like by the time it got to high school, there was just no one there. Like it was just me, And I have siblings, of course, and like they would always have like a daycare or something. Like they wouldn't generally be left under my watch. They would have like daycare, after school activities, night care, or some stuff for like my sister because she was really young. But ultimately, like it's like it is a 2 parent household, but they didn't do much of the parenting, and what parenting they did do was very rush, very brute force, very tyrannical, emotionally like for example, like I would describe my parents as like it's like two really, really emotional women who did not get their needs met when they were kids emotionally. And so when they're adults, they have this tendency to like catastrophize and blow up everything and like not take accountability. And also there's like that thing in Haitian culture where like you're not supposed to talk back to your parents, like very similar to black culture. In a lot of ways, from what I understand at least, where it's like you don't talk back to your parents, even if like they're hitting you, you're not supposed to try to defend yourself. You're supposed to just affirm everything that they do. And it's a very sort of like it's a difficult environment to ever call healthy. It's one thing to be like when we were young, we weren't aware of it, even though I was aware of it. Like, which actually kind of made it worse. Like, I think that like people who maybe weren't aware of it, they didn't. How can I explain it? It's not that they didn't feel like the full trauma of it, but I think like in a way they don't. Because like if you're aware that your parents are doing something fucked up, but you're also aware like you can't do anything about it, right? I feel like it kind of traps you in there. And so, yeah, it was a hot mess. But one of the reasons I say the 1% thing is this is from my experience mostly. Um, I just feel like the vast majority of people I know feel like their parents did not do a good job for XYZ reason. And like they can call out why they didn't do a good job. Now, a lot of them are forgiving their parents, which we can get into later. But yeah, I just wanted to double click a little bit on what Alex said because like yeah, that immigrant situation, it's tough. It's already hard enough raising kids, let alone trying to find a foothold in a country where you don't speak the fucking language and don't have the passport. It's like if your parents were already shitty, then like that kind of stress would probably make anyone shitty. Like just to be real with you. So yeah.
So the reason why I chose higher because there was a video Alice actually recently showed me, and I actually agreed with, and it was an Abba and Preach video. Just giving them a shout out. They were talking about how parenting was, and literally parents were just fucking winging it. Like,
yeah,
that's it. They're just winging it. So if you put it in the aspect of what everything all parents had to do, like Jacques, your family, they had to work. You had to have a roof over your head, or you would die. So it was
cold.
Yeah, in the cold. So it was, yeah, they had to rush what they had, but their main priority was keeping you alive. That's the main priority of every parent, usually, is to keep you alive. So how they were trying teaching you or doing things, yeah, it was wrong. Most parents do realize it was wrong and later on in their life. And it's just like, but it's for some people, it's like, oh, it's already too late. The damage is done. But, the parent, like I said, some parents are just like, yeah, what I did was wrong. I wish I would have, did better. But it's just like, you did with the best you could with the cards you were dealt with. So it's just, and like, you don't have to forget. Like some people, they don't have to forgive their parents. Like that's up to them if they want to forgive or not. I was raised by 3 different people. Of course, it was my mom, my stepmom, and my dad. So it was just like I had, the family and everything that hold it together and everything, and I didn't have to worry about, going to jail or anything like that, and XYZ. But the reason why I say that back in our generation we got lucky compared to the generation now is because most of these people just live in a single parent household. Back in our generation, it was more possible to have both parents. Now it's just you just get single parents. So I'm like, no, we got lucky. We got lucky in a lot of shit, to be actual. Like a lot of things. And you don't realize it until you get older that how lucky you were in general compared to what is going on now.
So that's interesting that you bring up the single parent. So obviously, like I said before, single parent household, right? So is my older brother. So I'm trying to see how I can articulate it. So in that scope, people who are in one parent household, they have a less chance of functioning, or am I understanding?
So wait, hold on, Dante. See the difference between how your single parent household and how some other people's single parent household is completely different.
Yeah. Like, I'm not just saying like I was just saying like, okay, so I'm just want to understand what you're saying to kind of like go into what I was saying. So and also what you were saying that these parents, as a parent, I can attest to what you're saying. There's no playbook. I'm doing the best that I know how. So that my mother, so that her mother, so on and so forth. I found out that a lot of things that I am teaching my daughter is that stuff that my mom taught me. My perspective of parenting is based on what my mom taught me and how, because it's just like that toughness, you know what I'm saying? Be tough, not like strong black independent woman, nothing like that, but it's just being tough and just being firm in how you raise your children. Because I was raised in that environment and that's what I know, I wouldn't say that's a bad way of parenting, but if you, from the outside looking in, somebody could say that is a bad way of parenting for whatever reason. I can't see it personally. I don't know if y'all can, but I personally don't think I was raised wrong. I mean, there's some stuff that could have been better.
So the problem with now with this, as I say back, like this generation now, these kids coming up now that are completely, I don't know if they're gonna do well or whatever. A lot of these parents are trying to be friends with their kids. You're not gonna be friends with no damn kid. Your kid, you gotta be a parent. That's it. Do
you think the friendliness comes for trying to show like they're loved, the child is loved? Is that some sort of way, a form of affection towards the child, or is that something completely different?
No, fuck that.
Are you referring to something completely different?
You're supposed to be a parent. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I'm just saying. I'm just trying to offer a devil's advocate to that comment.
No, because it fucks up the kid later. Because the kids over here think they can do everything. It's like, oh, we're best friends. This is my best friend. When I see a mom be like, yeah, this is my best friend, blah blah, I'll be like, yo, get that shit out of here and be a parent. Like, stop.
What do y'all think of when a mother says about their son is the king of the house or the man of the house, and he's like 5?
They're giving too much responsibility to the damn child. Look, come on now.
I want to go back to that, like raising your kids as friends thing, and like, is it an attempt at love? Because I think like it is. It's just extremely misguided. Because like I've seen examples of this, and yes, Kenny, you're right. That turns out horribly. But I think the reason for it is because like they're trying to just give the kids like a version of the relationship with their parents that they didn't have. And like, this is one of the weird things. Yeah, this is one of the weird things about parenting. It's like, if you did not have a good relationship with your parents, you are essentially, when you have kids, you're essentially going to guess at what a good relationship would have looked like. And you're probably going to guess wrong, right? That's kind of the thing about like guessing. It's like, there's way more wrong ways to do something than there are correct ways to do something. So this is one of the really popular guesses where people, because like, a healthy relationship with your parents later on does look like you being best friend. Like if you're like 30 or 40 and your mom is your best friend or your dad is your best friend, that's actually wonderful. The thing is that, like, it's not so great when you're 17. You know,
you don't have an actual proper grasp on life. Like me and my dad, cool as hell, love them to death. My mom, stepmom, and which is everybody finds weird that my mom and stepmom are cool with each other, and I'm just like, I don't understand why, but it's
why would be weird?
they're just weird themselves. But me and my dad, cool. I went to go see him today. He came by today. Well, I went to go see him at my aunt's house today, and me and my dad, he was my dad when I was a kid, but when I hit about like 22, 24, I left the house, we started to become closer, but we actually got closer when I left to go to Kuwait. When I left to go to Kuwait, that's when my dad was like heavily worried because he didn't know what was going to happen. And when I came back, he always wants to see me. Every time he's there, he's like, I want to see you. I want to see you. Because it's just, he don't know what's going to happen. So, but, you know, like I was saying, parents literally winging it. Like that video was the perfect explanation on everything we just talking about. Perfect explanation. Like they did a really good job. Like I said, when like Abba said in the video, when you're a kid, you're looking up to your parents. When you get about the same age, you're looking directly at them. And when you get when they get older, you're looking down on them because you have to watch them. So it's just, that's just the way of life. It is like it's in your household, old household, Jock, when you're saying when you have like everybody living in the house and stuff. That shit is odd here in the States, but in every other country, that's just normal.
Wait, you mean like multiple, like a village type of situation?
Like everybody living, that shit's just normal. Because everybody's got to watch everybody.
Yeah.
And that's how it honestly should be. But America's more so fucked up. That's just how it is.
It also keeps people healthier. So like old people, for example.
Yeah, because they need communication.
Yep. So like I think my granddad died at 99. And he was still he was functioning and teaching until the brain cancer was actually like too much and he died. So like imagine like you're almost 100 and you're still able to like teach. And part of that is that you live your whole life in a house that has because I think when he was a kid, the household was like 20 people. Because you know how generationally people have less kids? When he was a kid, it was something crazy. Like I think 20 people. I think he had 15 siblings. And in his whole life, he's always lived in a house with just a whole bunch of people. Even in old age, he would live in a house where there was always at least 3 young children at a time, right? And those were people that he'd have to watch. Those were people who he would take to school. He'd help with homework. He taught me chemistry. He would have been 80, 70. Yeah, he would have been 70 something. And he was teaching me chemistry. And that kind of stuff, that kind of it sounds exhausting, and I'm sure it is, but it also helps older people stay fit mentally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's actually really good for people to do stuff like that.
We're putting our grandmother in hospice right now, so she's gonna go pretty soon. But we decided to put her in home hospice because she'd be able to communicate more with her family. The problem with her was that she was by herself all the time. So her mind was just degenerating. So we put her in house hospice so she can be more responsive and everything like that. And we hope that she comes out of hospice just fine. But if not, at least she died around her family. And that's the thing. So, but like I said, it's just everything here in the US is just weird from when I was over there. It's weird coming back and seeing how everything is. And I'm just are we actually the most advanced country, or are we doing everything? I was the only thing I see we're doing good at is shooting people.
Yeah, causing
war. and I'm is that a bad thing? Nah, because it keeps people away from us. But on the other sense, it's just our people are not really advancing in the right way. we're advancing, but we're advancing in the wrong way when it comes to parenting.
Atrophying. I wouldn't even call it like advancement or regression. I would call it atrophy. It's like when you think about like how little people go out now, how little people interact. It's like if you think of like the social muscle as a muscle, right? Like you work out, Kenny, you know this.
Oh yeah.
But actually, so the lower half of my screen works out. I assume Dante and I don't really work out.
No, I do not. If you saw me physically,
yeah, that shit was wild, bro.
I may look thin from the cheeks up, but I'm like, nah.
I'm working on it. I got some ways to go, but well, where was I? Oh, right. So like it'll atrophy, right? So like your social ability, and I would say like society itself, like literally the actual society, American society, is atrophying. And yeah, I don't think it's particularly great, but I also couldn't tell you how to solve the damn thing.
The problem is like these fucking phones, bro.
So okay, I was going to dive into that. So I want to ask Alex this question specifically. Has social media ruined family dynamics?
This goes back to parents being their children's friends and all of the bad effects that has nowadays. So remember when I talked about and said you're always raised in a sense at least 2 generations behind? It's very rare if you're not raised at least 2 generations behind. And then, throw in being a foreigner, all this stuff, right? So now imagine being raised 2 generations behind while also experiencing the world's fastest technological revolution, where even if you were a part of it, you still don't even know how to use all the technology advances that came about. That's deep. How do you expect? Now, for those people who said, my parents didn't raise me right, what more could they have done without the knowledge on how to do it? So, for example, I remember when I was in 5th grade, it was very brand new, and we had a computer lab, and they taught us how to type on a keyboard. And I was very fortunate to have that in, obviously, my 5th grade class. There are adults who still can't type now.
Yeah.
Bro, so if you were parented by one of those parents who may not have believed in the hype, because remember, like, for example, virtual reality was a thing before all this is going on now. It was a thing they've been working on since the 80s and 90s. So imagine back then your parent thought, oh, this is going to be the future. And they dived into virtual reality and it failed miserably. Well, they made a bad risk and a bad gamble, and obviously that will affect you to this day. But imagine if you made that gamble 10 years ago with crypto. Boom. They're just base. They knew everything, right? As you raise up as a kid. So like we said earlier, they're doing the best that they can, but how could you ever know what technology and how it's going to shape the world today, even 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? Like, for example, I have the conversation with my mom all the time because generally foreigners always tell their kids to go be doctors, right? Mm-hmm. Go be a doctor. Generally, it's literally just the doctor route. And she pushed me to that route, and I eventually was going to go through it. And I kind of stopped and looked, and I was like, no, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to go through all that schooling, being that much in my debt. The way society looks at you, the fact that someone could just sue you so easily within the country, take everything away from you, lose pretty much your entire 20s, possibly your 30s in life. Like, no, I'm not doing any of that stuff. That's just barely anything saying. And I looked at my mom and said, why didn't you tell me to go be a mechanic? Why didn't you push something that's actually useful? Why didn't you tell me to go be an HVAC tech? We have properties, we have lands. Everyone in America drives cars. I could just have a garage in my early 20s and work, and by the time now in my 32s, I'd be an expert in my craft. Why didn't you tell me to do something like this that's actually tangible to so many different people? And she had no answer to me, because the thing is, once again, you're coming to a different country. You just kind of look, you're like, well, that's the thing I want my person, like my son or daughter, to do is the best thing ever. But a lot of the times the functionality of that changes year after year. And it's very difficult as a parent to kind of comprehend and take a step back to say, am I really pushing the right thing on my kid? Because it's the same story across all foreigners is go be a doctor. Yeah, it's literally the exact same story. But the question is, why is that always the same story?
It goes
I
back to
was
them doing the best that they know.
doing the best they know.
The best that they know, and it's a collective of it. And then in addition to that, so talking back to the entire parents or friends thing, a large majority of that is just, unfortunately, we aren't healthy people, and it's trauma that parents have. Parents aren't perfect people, they're humans too. So when they have that child or that kid, if they haven't gone through their own traumas, for example, generally speaking, we see the single mom saying like, hey, my daughter is my best friend. But oftentimes, a lot of the women I know in my life, they don't have any friends. So now, in a sense, it's like this is a friendship they have, but it's also forced because their child can't get away from them. They depend on them. So now this is a friendship that they have control over. And a huge majority of this is a power dynamic between the child and the mother in this case, because most of the single parents out there are single moms. So when you factor that in, it's a very unhealthy relationship with that friendship dynamic, because it's not like it can't happen. Because as you grow in age, like Jock was saying, you do, in a sense, become friends with your parents, but that comes with age, that comes with wisdom, that comes with respect, that comes with boundaries. But early in life, if that child doesn't have boundaries, which oftentimes we see, that doesn't end well at all. And now you give someone pretty much the most powerful technological device in the world, a cell phone in their hands, where they have access to unlimited anything. And you expect that child to grow to be a functioning adult?
Like most thing, and the funny thing is, most thing they use on that thing is fucking Facebook, TikTok,
So the thing is,
and all that.
it's not the fact that social media inherently is bad. It's the same thing. It's like the tool's not bad. Like one of my favorite quotes I've ever seen. What was the whole plan in Star Wars where Anakin killed all those children?
Operate Order 66.
Was it Order 66, right?
Yeah, Order 66.
No one blamed the lightsaber for doing any of that. And I kind of looked at that and was just like, holy shit, this is so amazing. No one blamed the tool for this for any of the bloodshed throughout the entire Star Wars trilogy. No one said there should be no more lightsabers. Everyone stopped producing lightsabers, right? It sounds ridiculous, right? Why would you do that? No one blamed the lightsaber. It's the person who's wielding the tool. In the same sense with a cell phone in a child's hand. But the thing is, we're not a healthy people, and we don't teach people any boundaries within this. There's no social media class that's taught in middle school, elementary school. You know, they're not integrating these new technologies in a teaching purpose to say, hey, this is how you interact with people online. There's just a bunch of fucking assholes online because online's online, and we all just accepted the fact that it's online, people gotta be assholes. But we've never really combated the fight against it in a way that's meaningful for people to grow into age with it.
And nobody uses these parental control options
Parental
anymore.
controls are a joke.
So
I'm like, bro,
You can hack your way out of that so easily. It's not even funny.
it's
so
like
to go with Jock. So yes, Jock is right. So I'm on a family plan. I'm paying my daughter's phone bill, right? So I can lock down her phone completely. But these kids are so smart when it comes to technology. They can literally, what Jock said, weasel their way out of or find a loophole somewhere, and you can't always be there. So yeah, you're right, Jock.
Do you have a tracker on their phone?
Yeah. I mean, I know where.
An app tracker on their phone.
Yeah, I have Life 360 on her phone.
No.
What app she goes to?
She looks on it. If she looks on it for a long time, if she looks at it past the time she looks at it, just take the fucking phone away.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not so. To answer your question, yes. When I go to her, whatever, I can see how long she's been on the app and what app she's messaging app or TikTok or Facebook or whatever. I can see all of that. But also because of how technology in these phones is such a big thing in today's. That's why I started, because she's now a teenager, because she's 13, as a parent, I want to take her, and that's why we went to D.C. to take her to African American Museum so she can be exposed to things outside of her phone. I want her to see things outside in the world. When we went to D.C., she said, this gives me England vibes. She thought D.C. would look like London. And I just thought that was fascinating. But
why?
I don't. Because of whatever perception
that
somebody
gave her.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's unlimited consumption, but you have no filter as far as what is being consumed. It's like taking any obese person, just putting them in front of food. There's no limit as far as what they're going to consume. I mean, that's the entire point. The entire thing of obesity is just a lack of control. And we're seeing the physical manifestation of the mental degradation of someone who can't control how much food they eat. Now we're seeing the opposite effect with social media. We now see the physical manifestation as far as what people consume in social media when we have a conversation with them. And some people can't even have conversations.
Yeah, and so when she said that, we got off the plane, we got on the subway, went up top. When we went outside, she was like, "Whoa, I thought this would look like England. I thought this looked like London." I was like, "Why did you think that?" And she was kind of like, "I don't know. I just thought." So, like you said, Alex, I think whatever type of social media she's consuming, or whatever people in her school is consuming, or whatever, you know what I'm saying? People talk, people say all types of stuff in any given moment of the day. She just had this impression. So that made me realize I'm glad that I took her to DC, so she won't be like 20 years old thinking DC looks like London when they don't look nothing like London. Maybe the building architecture, I can kind of I don't know.
The dense and packness, but that's it.
Yeah.
Other than that, density.
But it looks nothing like London. And as far as this generation is concerned, like, as the sole parent in this podcast, apparently, I'm doing the best I can with my child, like, to expose her to things so she won't just be so green and, you know, stupid, I guess. So she can like I'm glad in hindsight, and it put perspective that I need to do this more. We need to travel more or see anything outside of New Orleans more, because you need to see the world. Like, next we're going to Chicago. I don't know anybody in Chicago, but I want her to see different cities, how people live. I'm trying to expose her to how people live. So you never know where her life may lead her. She may be one of these people on public transportation. I don't want her to be acting sedity on a train. You know what I'm saying?